Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media. The light was slipping out of the November sky when the stillness on the Kenai Peninsula broke. What moments earlier had been the gentle whisper of spruce needles and a dying wind turned abruptly into something else, something primal. A low guttural grunt rolled through the tree line, followed by the unmistakable thud of something large, moving with purpose. Brigadier General Blake Gettys froze on the narrow trapping trail, his focus sharpening in an instant. In that fading half-light between day and night, when shadows lengthen and the forest casts its darkness, a hulking shadow appeared. The man stared at the bear before the predator dug in its heels and bounded toward him. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Alaska has a way of humbling even the most seasoned of travelers. Stretch the outline of Alaska across the lower 48, and its edges would brush Minnesota, Texas, Florida, and California. Out here, there are more caribou than people. Its coastline is longer than the shorelines of the remaining 49 states combined. Its mountains are the tallest on the continent. But for many, there is one creature that defines this place more than any river, glacier, or peak, a creature as old as the wilderness itself. Brown bears move through this country like ghosts of a wilder age. They're woven into the ecology of the state as deeply as the black spruce and the dwarf birch, as constant as the salmon surges that feed them, and as unpredictable as the storms that roll in from the Gulf of Alaska. Mid-November in south-central Alaska brings long nights, cold days, and bare branches. Alder thickets web the riverbanks in dense tangles, and the cottonwoods stand skeletal and pale against a low sun that barely clears the horizon. Snow dusts the shaded hollows, and the winter chill pushes into your bones. Large grazers, moose and caribou, move through the shadows, browsing quietly on willow twigs. Predators, wolves, coyotes, lynx, and the brown bears that rule them all, patrol the edges of these forests. This is not a land that merely supports wildlife, it's governed by it. It was in this realm that Brigadier General Blake Gettys walked that mid-November evening in 2012, following the trap line near the cabin he'd maintained along the Kenai River for more than 2 decades. He'd walked that ground thousands of times, cutting trails, splitting wood, entertaining visiting church groups, fishing, trapping, and repairing outbuildings. For all those years, the bears had always been there, and always, until this moment, they'd been harmless. Gettys was not just any man wandering through the Alaskan bush. He stood a towering 6 feet 2 inches and weighed 220 pounds, with the broad chest and powerful shoulders of the former offensive lineman he once was. He'd played and later coached at the United States Air Force Academy, and the disciplined athleticism of that life had never left him. He was unarmed that day, something that for many might seem unthinkable, but for a seasoned woodsman like Gettys, it reflected decades of peaceful coexistence with the local bears. He carried himself with an outdoorsman's confidence, not arrogance, but familiarity, the kind earned only by living close to the land. His trapping partner, Brian, was somewhere down the trail toward the river, also unarmed. The two had shared countless days in the woods together. Blake trusted him implicitly. Alaska teaches a person to choose their companions with care, because sometimes their courage is the only barrier between you and catastrophe. Gettys had no reason to sense danger that afternoon. There were no ravens calling alarms overhead, no fresh kill sites nearby, no circling winds carrying the musk of a bear. Yet as Blake later learned, something else was present, something far more consequential. The Kenai Peninsula has long been one of Alaska's most complex landscapes for human-bear interactions. As far back as the early 20th century, recorded accounts describe brown bears moving along the salmon-rich rivers and tidal flats in impressive densities, especially during warm autumns, where late-running salmon built up along the river systems. Through the 1960s and 1970s, as roads expanded and cabins multiplied, encounters increased, not because the bears were growing bolder, but because the people were spreading deeper into habitat the bears had occupied for thousands of years. The grunt came first, deep, resonant, and close. Gettys turned and froze. 20 yards away, a massive bear moved along the tree line, its outline shifting in the dimming 5 o'clock light. He assumed it was a boar. The size and shape suggested it, and tracks he'd seen earlier seemed to confirm it. Instinctively, he raised his arms and shouted, exactly what the old guidance taught decades ago. But this time the rules had changed. The bear roared and launched into a full charge. At 50 feet per second, a brown bear covers 20 yards in a breath. Gettys set his stance, knees bent and arms forward, as though bracing for a blitzing linebacker. He hoped for a bluff charge. He didn't get one. The bear came in low, its paws reaching past its skull, its enormous body seeming to stretch wider as it closed the distance. In the final instant, Blake stepped sideways. The bear's head shot past him by inches, but even in missing, it didn't miss. Its right front paw swung backward, and one 5-inch claw hooked the inside of Blake's left thigh, cutting all the way down to the femur. The impact was catastrophic. The blow lifted him off the ground and slammed him down so hard that Brian, 75 yards away, thought a giant spruce had fallen. By what can only be called divine luck, the claw missed Blake's femoral artery by a 1/4 inch. Had it severed it, he would have bled out in 15 seconds. The blow slowed the bear just enough for it to turn toward him again. Gettys was stunned, barely aware of his position on the ground before the bear was on him. Brown bears know exactly how to neutralize a threat. They take the face first. As Blake tried to shield himself, the bear's mouth engulfed his head, its lower canines locked around the right side of his jawbone, while the upper teeth cut across his scalp above the left temple. With terrifying force, the bear's jaws snapped shut. Skin peeled away from bone. Its teeth carved through both eyebrows, across the bridge of his nose, through his left nostril and nasal septum. His face hung in ragged strips. He tried to jam his arm into the bear's mouth to keep it from closing, but its jaws clamped down anyway, cutting his forehead to the bone. He pried at its jaws, trying to free himself. Each time he succeeded, the bear struck again. The attack moved with calculated ferocity. It crushed his left arm. It went back for his scalp. Blake heard the sound, not felt it, heard it, the grinding of the bear's teeth across his skull. But then something shifted. The bear paused, standing over him, its mouth dripping blood. Blake could see its face inches from his left shoulder. Somewhere downriver a cub bawled, its cry distant and unmistakable. So this was not a boar at all, it was a sow. Brian's voice cut through the chaos. He was yelling, running toward the attack instead of away from it. The sow wheeled and charged him. Brian sprinted for the river trail, diving at the last moment into a wall of alders. The bear struck him mid-air like a battering ram, flattening the 5-gallon bucket in his backpack, shredding his clothing, and rolling him deep into the thicket. The dense branches trapped her outside the tangle, preventing her from getting fully on top of him. Other than a massive bruise, he survived, untouched. Blake did not have that luxury. He heard the rumble of the charging bear returning before he ever saw her. Exhausted and already torn nearly to shreds, he curled again into a protective position. The sow clamped down on his right leg below the knee, shaking it violently, nearly tearing it free. She bit again, harder, then dropped the limb, as if testing whether it was still attached. Finally she rose above him, looming like a living monolith. She put her forepaws together and drove them down on his chest with all 800 pounds of her weight, twice. The blows emptied his lungs and left him wounded and helpless. Then, as quickly as it began, it ended. She stared into his eyes for a long moment, long enough for Blake to wonder whether the next breath he took would be his last. Then she turned, walking slowly downriver. The forest swallowed her. Somehow, despite wounds that would have killed most people outright, Gettys remained conscious. Brian, bruised and shaken but alive, managed to reach him, summon help, and assist rescuers in getting Blake to medical care by 8 o'clock that evening. Surgeons worked for 2 hours to repair the catastrophic damage to his leg, followed by 6 hours of meticulous facial reconstruction under Dr. Coleman, a surgeon well known in Alaska for rebuilding the faces of bear mauling victims. He later remarked that Blake was the second worst mauling case he had ever repaired. Against all odds, Blake recovered. His face, once torn nearly beyond recognition, was rebuilt with extraordinary skill. His strength returned, his life resumed, and as many joked later, he somehow emerged even more handsome than before, a testament to both surgical mastery and his own impossible resilience. Alaska holds roughly 30,000 brown bears, more than any other region in North America. The state spans more than 570,000 square miles, creating a density that averages 1 brown bear for every 19 square miles, though certain river corridors, like the Kenai, hold far higher concentrations. Given the sow's behavior, her immediate aggression, her fixation on Blake's face, her willingness to redirect her attack toward Brian, and her eventual withdrawal, it's evident that it was a defensive maternal attack, not predatory behavior. Gettys heard the cub bawling early in the encounter, and the sow's pattern aligns perfectly with known maternal defensive strategies. Overwhelming violence directed at neutralizing a perceived threat, followed by withdrawal once the threat is incapacitated. There was no animal carcass cached nearby. The bear was reacting defensively to protect herself and her cubs from a perceived threat. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon, linked below, will give you ad-free early access to episodes, photos, and notes. And the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. Pictures of Blake's wounds are posted there, and I warn you, they are pretty grim, so view them at your own risk. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Would the outcome of this attack have been different had the bear not missed his femoral artery by the width of a fingernail? Could any weapon, spray, or firearm have changed the outcome of the initial charge? What steps could Blake have taken to avoid being mauled by this bear? I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.